Hey, so this tutorial is on wool roving dreadlocks. So I'm going to be showing you how to make these today. This is some that I've already made. These are tightly felted and I like mine made quite thin. They're not that thick, but the good thing with wool roving is you can decide whether to have yours thin or thick. And I just choose to have mine quite thin and a lot more of them. These are just brown, and I've had a delivery of some hand dyed merino silk mix wool roving. So some hand dyed mixed brown, as you can see there, and some blonde, but the yellow sort of crashed out in parts, but it's okay. Just sort of adds to the tone really. Here we have got 100 grams, 50 grams of each, even though it does look like a lot more, but it is just 100 grams in total. It's not enough for a full head. For a full head set of wool roving felted dreadlocks, you will need, depending on the thickness, for thin dreadlocks like mine, you'll need approximately 250, 270 grams, and for a thicker set, probably a thickness of say a Sharpie, you'll need about 350 grams of wool roving. And this is sort of the thickness that I like mine. And as you can see, these are quite tightly felted. You're not going to be able to pull these apart, and they do look quite sort of natural looking, and they're tapered at the bottom. I like them sort of rustic looking. So I'm going to be showing you how I make these, and I will be using my hand dyed yarn. I got mine from Unbelievable on Facebook, so you check them out. She'll dye you up any colours that you want in a mixture of variety of colours. Really good price as well. So a couple of things that you'll need: a towel for rolling out your wool roving to felt them into your dreadlocks, and you'll need that on a steady surface, and so the towel doesn't move about. And you'll need a towel that's not been washed in fabric softener, and an old towel that you don't mind dye getting onto, because some of your dye will come off onto the towel, and a rough towel. You'll need some gloves for rolling out your dreadlocks. I didn't use gloves at first, and yeah, all the skin come off on the palm of my hand and sort of burn, and it was really sore for a couple of days and I couldn't do anything. You'll need your wool roving, and you will need a pan on the stove, and you'll need that at quite a high temperature. Just have it simmering. So I'm going to set that off soon. You don't need it really full. You'll need a plate for when your wool roving is soaked. You'll need to remove your wool roving, a knife, an ordinary knife, and some ordinary, just white ordinary soap. I will explain why. So you're going to want to take your wool roving and you're going to want to separate it now. So you can separate it into your long strips ready for putting in the pan, ready for felting, and then rolling out into your dreadlocks. So you're just going to want to take it, separate it into the thickness that you want, and you can test that by just rolling it out and judging sort of how much thickness from the raw wool roving that you'll lose once you've felted it out. So I like mine quite thin, so this much will be enough. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this apart and separate it like this into my sections. So I've separated all my wool roving now, and my water is just warming up. I've made some shorter, really thin pieces, but I will use them, dread them up, but they'll be used as hair ties. So when you tie up your dreads, they just match in really neatly with all your other dreadlocks. So yeah, that's all that done. So I'm just waiting now for the warm water to warm, and I'll explain the next steps. So what I like to do now I've got them in the sections, is dry rolling them, is what I call it, and that's just to get the basic shape just before you place it in the hot water. So before I show you that, I'll actually turn the wool roving into the felted dreadlock. You dry roll them, so you just get your wool roving in your section and you roll it out just to get the basic shape. Now I don't know if this is what everybody else does, I don't know if it's necessary, but this is what I do. So you just roll it out all the way along. So I'm going to go ahead and do this and then show you it when it's completed, and then on to the next step. Okay, so we have gone from the raw wool roving in the strips, we've gone from that to the actual sort of formed shape of a dreadlock, and that's just from rolling them out dry with nothing on it, just before we put them into the pan. So I've had the pan now for about 15 minutes on number 3 on the hob on my electric stove, so sort of medium heat, I guess. I don't know what your stove is, so just on a medium heat. You don't want it roaring, boiling. I don't anyway, so I don't know what everyone else does. This is just my tutorial on how I make my dreadlocks, and my wool roving dreadlocks turn out alright. So I'm going to go ahead and dunk these into this simmering water, and I'm going to leave them in there now for about 10 or 15 minutes. So I'm not just going to go ahead and plonk those in there, so we'll just choose one. Sorry about the camera angle. And just dip that in. And this is where now I need, oh, hang on, take that out. Before we do that, actually, you will need your soap. And now this is where you just need to scratch some soap into the water, just a little bit of it, just ordinary white bar of soap. The dish soap fairy washing up liquid or any other kind of washing up liquid. Doesn't really work as well, I don't think, so this is why I use this. So you just need to put enough in until the water feels slippery. And obviously because the water is really hot, do that, test the water with your gloves on. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. And I'll just rest the camera down while I do that. Okay, so it was about 10 times I scratched the bar of soap, if that makes sense. And that does it really, you don't need any more than that. And it's a soap that helps the fibres bind and felt. So now with that piece that we did try dunking, I'm going to go ahead and put that in there in just a second when that soap mixes in. And I'm using a wooden spoon in it. It's the same wooden spoon that I'll use each time, just because all the soap and any dye will soak into it because it's a wooden spoon. I say that now because usually I've been using metal, but the sound clinking against the pan will annoy you. So I'm going to actually mark this spoon and use this as the one I always use from now on. Right, so that's mixed in. And just back up, and now we're going to go ahead and put one of the dreadlocks in to start felting. So we just need some help here to get that sunk in, and there we go. And the same again. You should really be doing this with your gloves on just because the water is extremely hot. Not extremely hot, it's not boiling, but just be careful. So that's 2 in there. How many have we got? 4, 5. Let's try and show you a better angle. What am I doing? Whoop. See, once you layer them on top of each other, they don't really get mixed up when they're in the pan. so they don't sort of wrap round each other when you lay them one on top of the other, sort of coiling them round each other. Just checking I didn't drop one. No. Well, I hope I didn't anyway. Don't know now. If I dropped one, it went in the bin, and I don't think I want that now. Oh well. This is the last one. And that's the little one. Really little and really thin, and I'll probably use this as hair ties. Right, so there you go. Right, so I'm just going to move that pan now on the ring. Right, so I think I shall leave that there for about 5 minutes. Really let them soak really well. And then we'll come back and show you the next step. Now, one thing to note is some of your dye will come out in the water, and especially if it's hand dyed as well. And the longer you leave it, the more dye that will come out. But it doesn't mean that it's going to go back to the wool roving, going back to the white, raw, natural, undyed colour. Now all those are pretty well soaked, so I'm going to go ahead now, take them out and place them on the plate that I've set to one side. This now you'll definitely need your gloves on for. So I'm just going to go ahead and put my gloves on. So I'm just going to turn that ring off now, and I will have to put the camera down for this. I can't wait till I get my new camera and tripod so I can do better videos. So you need to just pick up one of the soon to be dreadlocks, and you need to squeeze down from the top to the bottom and squeeze all the water out, so holding with your left hand, and then with the right hand just squeeze all the way down and then place on the plate. So now I've removed all the wool roving strips from the pan, and you can see a lot of dye has come out. Like I said, a lot of dye will come out, yet there's still, you know, very yellow. A lot of dye is still in there, so don't worry about it, it will happen. I'm going to go ahead let these cool before rolling them out, and I'll let them cool just for a minute or two, and I'll show you the next step. So after all the rolling, it was about 7 minutes of rolling just for one dreadlock, and this is small as well, a really short one, if you can see. So either for the side of the head or as a hair tie. And like I said, the width of mine, if you can see against my little finger, they are not that thick. So, and I've not really made any thicker ones, so I don't know the length of time or the rolling needed for thicker dreadlocks. Now what you don't want is to be able to pull them apart. So if you can get them and pull them apart, then they're not felted. So you have to just get them, and if you're able to do this, they are not felted. So if you want to buy a handmade set of felted dreadlocks, if they arrive to you and they are like, you're able to do that like that, they are not felted dreadlocks. That is not a good that is not a good buy. They have not been correctly felted. So now down here, this part is extremely well felted together. I cannot pull this apart at all. This part here, as you can see, it is quite loose. Here, it's really well felted. So to get them really well felted, you may need to dunk them in the hot water again, and then leave them to cool in the hot water, then take them out and then re-roll them. And you may need to do this up to 3 times before they're really tightly felted. You may not get them completely tightly felted all in one go. I haven't yet. And the reason why you want them completely tightly felted is when you shower with these, wearing these, you don't want them to unravel. You'd want them to stay uniform in the tight, straight shape. They're going to go sort of knotted and clumpy and not really, you know, nice. You want them clean looking and straight looking. So that's why you want them tightly felted. Now each time you felt the one set, you need to let them dry overnight completely before you try felting them again. So you're going to have to do this for the first time, and if they're not felting, do the whole set, leave them to dry, put them in the hot water again, re-roll them out, leave them to dry, come back again. If they've not felted, do it again, do the same again. Now, I can't stress enough how it really doesn't matter if the first time round they've not completely felted, because as of yet I've not had a set where I've not had to roll them out again. I suppose it's maybe the more vigorous you are with rolling them out, the tighter they'll go. Maybe it's something to do with how long I keep them in the water for. So if any of you have done this before and you've done it the first time round where they've tightly felted, please let me know, because as of yet I've not managed to do it myself. So anyway, this is how I do these. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up my plate of wool roving spaghetti and get them all looking like this, and probably have to do it 2 or 3 times. So I hope this video has been informative for you, and if you make wool roving dreadlocks and have videos of your own and have managed to make sets where they've felted tightly and all uniform and neat, all in one go, please post your links so I can have a look at that. Thank you very much. Bye bye.